Hello, it's Saturday the 3rd of September. You're tuned in to our 6 p.m. newscast coming to you from Arirang's News Centre in Seoul. It's great to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this evening, President Park Geun-hye is in Russia on the first leg of her three-nation diplomacy tour. On Saturday, she attended the Eastern Economic Forum, an event set up by Russian President Vladimir Putin to foster growth in the Far East. Speaking at the forum, President Park said the North Korean nuclear issue is severely hampering those efforts. Our presidential office correspondent Song Ji-son, who is travelling with the president, files this report from Vladivostok.
President Park's Eurasia Initiative and President Putin's broader Eurasia Partnership both seek to maximize the Far East growth potential by expanding a link of East Asian countries to Russia and to Europe. However, Seoul and Moscow's grand plans are being blocked by one major problem: North Korea's nuclear program.
극동 지역 발전을 지속 가능하게 하고 아태 지역과의 연계성을 확대 발전시켜 나가기 위해 영내 안정과 평화 유지는 필수 조건입니다. 이러한 점에서 유라시아 대륙 내의 핵심적 단절 고리이자 최대의 위협인 북한 문제를 언급하지 않을 수 없습니다.
President Park called on Russia and other nations present at the Eastern Economic Forum to join Seoul's efforts in implementing sanctions on the north. She also stressed that Pyongyang's missiles threaten the safety of vessels going in and out of Vladivostok.
지금 우리가 시급성을 갖고 북한의 핵 개발을 막지 못한다면 머지않아 북한의 핵 위협은 돌이킬 수 없는 현실이 될 것입니다. 북한이 핵을 포기할 수밖에 없도록 만들려면 북한에 단호하고 일치된 메시지를 보내는 것이 무엇보다 중요합니다.
Putin responded Russia is against nuclear proliferation and that Russia will engage in various channels of communications with Pyongyang to resolve its nuclear issue. On her first stop of her three-nation multilateral diplomacy tour, President Park made it clear that joint efforts from the international community for the North Korean issues are a must for mutual growth, peace, and prosperity on regional and global level. Song Ji-son, Arirang News, Vladivostok.
Now, President Park Geun-hye and her Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin continue discussions for mutual growth at their bilateral summit that followed the forum. The two leaders sealed dozens of deals to support South Korean and Russian companies exploring joint business opportunities in Siberia and Russia's Far East. Kim Hyun-bin has the details.
South Korea and Russia have set the foundation for greater economic cooperation and future-oriented growth. Wrapping up research for the free trade deal, the two sides will officially begin talks early next month for an FTA with the Eurasian Economic Union. That includes Russia, Belarus, Armenia, Kyrgyzstan, and Kazakhstan. President Park and Putin signed 24 agreements on areas ranging from space and Arctic development to health and medicine. Seoul will seek to participate in Russia's Far East development projects worth almost $400 million and take part in joint research and exchange projects to share their respective know-how.
Our cooperation is currently limited to manufacturing and energy resources, but we plan to expand the areas to high value-added sectors in agriculture, fisheries, healthcare and environment, and help Korean companies enter Russia's Far East and the rest of Eurasia beyond Western Russia.
The two leaders anticipate that South Korea's advanced ICT and construction technologies, in collaboration with Russia's rich resources and know-how, will create stronger momentum for synergy and development in the Far East. President Park will continue to call for open and free trade to overcome protectionism during her next stop in Hangzhou for the G20 summit. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News, Vladivostok.
Now, China, the world's biggest polluter, has ratified the global agreement on tackling climate change reached last year in Paris. The top standing committee of the Chinese parliament approved the deal on the eve of the G20 summit to take place, as we heard, in the city of Hangzhou. The US is also poised to ratify the agreement. China says its decision will safeguard environmental security and is conducive to the country's development interests. In order to fulfill its obligations, China will have to cut carbon emissions by 60 to 65% per unit of GDP by 2030 compared to 2005 levels. China will also have to boost its use of non-fossil fuels so they account for a fifth of its energy consumption. The Korean government has promised to fast-track the allocation of the bulk of the supplementary budget that was passed on Friday. The $9.8 billion budget aimed at boosting the slowing local economy was agreed after weeks of political wrangling. The government will look to allocate 64% of it by the end of the month, prioritising plans supporting corporate restructuring and job creation. They include pumping $1 billion into industrial and trade banks and $350 million to credit guarantee funds. Money has also been set aside to aid the country's education and healthcare sectors. Samsung Electronics has released details of the exchange program for the Galaxy Note 7 for its customers in the United States. This comes after the tech giant confirmed a battery cell fault in a handful of models that caused them to burst into flames while charging. Kwon Jang-oh with the details.
Just 2 weeks after launching, Samsung Electronics has issued a global recall of its new flagship phablet, the Galaxy Note 7. An internal investigation confirmed a manufacturing fault in the phone's battery cell had led to 35 cases of it catching fire. Although Samsung estimates only about 24 out of a million units are affected, the Korean tech giant has promised to exchange all 2.5 million handsets that have been shipped across 10 countries. Samsung says customers in the US can begin exchanging their phones as early as next week. The exchange can be made either in retail stores or by mail, and customers will have the option to either choose a straight swap with a new Note 7 or choose to change it to Samsung's other flagship smartphone, the Galaxy S7 or S7 Edge, with a refund on the price difference. Customers will also receive a $25 gift card as a goodwill gesture. A full refund will also be available, including on any Note 7 related accessories. Customers in Korea will be able to exchange their phones from September 19th with the use of a temporary phone offered in the meantime. Details of exchange programs in other markets are to be announced in the coming days. Samsung also said it aims to offer an option to exchange for at least 6 months. Launches in other territories such as the UK and France have been delayed, while handsets in China, which began sales on Thursday, are said to be unaffected. Early industry estimates suggest the recall could cost Samsung up to $1.3 billion. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
The president of the Philippines has announced sweeping new powers for the military following a bomb attack on his home city which killed 14 people and injured scores more. During a visit to the site of the blast, a market in the southern city of Davao, Rodrigo Duterte said troops would be deployed in urban areas and conduct operations normally carried out by the police. The authorities are in a high state of alert across the country, including in the capital, Manila. A local militant group has claimed responsibility for the attack, but the president said the authorities believe drug cartels could have been involved. Duterte's crackdown on illegal drugs has left hundreds dead and thousands more in jail over the past 2 months. The US International Trade Commission has finalized hefty anti-dumping and countervailing duties on South Korean steel imports. The decision comes a matter of weeks after the US Commerce Department said it wanted to impose an almost 65% duty on certain steel products from POSCO and 38% of duties on imports from Hyundai Steel. It said the products were sold in the US at less than fair value and was subsidized by the South Korean government. In a statement, the Commission said the imports were damaging the US steel industry. 15 people have gone missing in North Korea after massive floods hit the region near its border with Russia. The North state-run Korean Central News Agency says heavy downpours and gusty winds pounded the country over the past week. It says the northeastern province of Hamgyeongbuk-do saw well over 300 millimeters of rain. On top of the 15 missing, more than 40,000 people had to be evacuated after thousands of homes were destroyed in the floods. Finally, we're going to take a brief look at the weekend weather here in Korea. And most of the nation is under cloudy skies this evening. It will be a fairly mild night with the low only dipping to 19 degrees Celsius in Seoul. Sunday is going to be very pleasant in Seoul and the rest of the central region. We're going to see daytime highs ranging in the high 20s to low 30s. Showers are in the forecast for the southern part of the country, though. With that, let's take a look at the weather in Korea and around the world. Well, that's all we have for now. Do enjoy the rest of your Saturday wherever you're watching us, and stay tuned to Arirang TV. We'll be back again with our next newscast. That's coming up at 10 p.m. Korea time. So until then, goodbye.